It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down the most memorable characters within the vast horror movie landscape. We will be going into a few spoilers.
All that detail just from memory, sir?
Memory, Agent Starling, is what I have instead of a view.
Number 20, Pennywise, It franchise.
Pennywise? Yes, meet Georgie. Georgie, meet Pennywise.
Every generation, it seems, has an It. For older horror fans, it's Tim Curry's portrayal of Pennywise in the 1990 adaptation of Stephen King's novel. Modern audiences, meanwhile, have been thrilled by Bill Skarsgård's embodiment of this evil entity that takes the shape of a creepy, malevolent clown. They're both great, with CGI and practical makeup effects utilised to induce the proper atmosphere behind the performances.
Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out!
Pennywise seems to be eternal, an interdimensional force of evil that preys on fear and stops at nothing to ensure total nightmare fuel for anybody that gazes upon that scary face.
You'll float down here. We'll float down here. Yes, we do.
Number 19, Sidney Prescott, Scream franchise.
Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
The slasher movie genre possesses a long history of memorable final girls, smart and capable female protagonists that make it to the end and defeat the killer. Sidney Prescott from the Scream films embodied that archetype for the modern era, and was also able to buck the puritanical shackles that formerly held down many final girls. Prescott is in charge for her sexuality, and the final girl status bestowed upon her isn't dependent upon any virginal status. Instead, it's Prescott's resourcefulness, strength, and determination that makes her the bane of just about anyone who dares to take on the mantle of Ghostface.
I'm an innocent victim.
You're a psychotic.
Yeah, well, shh.
Number 18, R.J. MacReady, The Thing.
We're gonna draw a little bit of everybody's blood. We're gonna find out who's the thing.
John Carpenter's reimagining of 1951's The Thing from Another World and its 1938 source novel, Who Goes There, possessed a very memorable ensemble cast, including Wilford Brimley and Keith David. It's Kurt Russell's performance as R.J. MacReady that anchors the whole film together, however. He's a de facto leader who takes it upon himself to uncover what the thing is, and who's next upon its assimilation checklist.
I thought you'd feel that way, Gary. You were the only one that could have got to that blood. We'll do you last.
Russell's gruff demeanour and steadiness under pressure is a rock for the audience as things gradually become more dangerous and chaotic. Meanwhile, the film's final shot is a beautifully ambiguous coda to all of the drippy mayhem that we've experienced up until that point.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while?
Number 17, Chris Washington, Get Out.
Why is he dressed like that?
It's not that, it's everything. He came to the party with a white woman like 30 years older than him.
Jordan Peele's Get Out may not have reinvented the wheel when it was released back in 2017, but it certainly slapped a fresh coat of paint upon horror cinema's established body snatcher tropes. The film also possessed a likable protagonist in the form of Daniel Kaluuya's Chris Washington, an everyman sort of character that's about to enter the fight of his life.
So, is it true? Is it better?
Wow.
Washington remains optimistic in the face of some very awkward and strange situations, and he's also resourceful enough to emerge out on the other side, after being betrayed by his girlfriend Rose Armitage. Kaluuya's facial expressions in particular sell his character's desperation at points, underlying the emotional resonance behind Get Out and its narrative.
I don't know, I just thought that if I did, it'd make it real.
Number 16, Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. There are few fictional horror tales as scary as reality, and it was the story of a real-life killer, Ed Gein, that inspired the creation of Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. The character has progressed a bit throughout the series' lengthy run, with his iconic debut in Tobe Hooper's 1974 masterpiece, setting the stage for the Sawyer family and their bloody legacy. Future installments saw Leatherface adopt tones that could vary from sympathetic to comedic, although this hulking meat cutter was usually established as a victim of abuse from his overbearing family. Leatherface's status as a horror icon remains assured through it all, a harrowing character whose dedication to the blade underlines one enduring sentiment: the saw is family.
The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history: the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Number 15, Annie Graham, Hereditary.
I just want to die.
The cultural landscape of horror has shifted over the last decade or so, with more and more prestige actors dipping their toes into the mayhem. This has given the genre an air of respectability, heretofore unseen during its lifetime, an existence that's primarily been defined by lucrative slasher sleaze, grindhouse exploitation, and cult cinema fandom.
Don't you swear at me, you little shit! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother!
Toni Collette's portrayal of Annie Graham in Hereditary was a great example of this coming of age, an actor that lent her enviable talents to Ari Aster's update of well-worn possession tropes. Collette sells the feelings of grief and trauma that threaten to break through the surface of Graham's composed veneer. Meanwhile, the climax of Hereditary goes for broke as Graham's possession is complete and total chaos erupts.
I tried to burn it, but my arm caught on fire on its own as if I was linked to it because I am linked to it. I understand this now!
Number 14, Father Damien Caris, The Exorcist franchise.
If a person's, possessed by a demon or something, how do they get an exorcism?
Well, the first thing, I'd have to get him into a time machine and get him back to the 16th century.
It speaks volumes to the enduring spirit, pun intended, of The Exorcist that this horror classic remains so scary, despite its thematic elements being endlessly parodied over the years. We've all seen other demonic possession movies that adapt the movements and cadence of Jason Miller's performance as Father Damien Caris.
Damien!
Amen.
Yet the original Exorcist remains so mesmerizing and compelling thanks to the humanity Miller brings to his performance. Caris is a man with a crisis of faith, as well as overarching stresses and anxieties over the death of his mother. The demon Pazuzu seeks to exploit this at every turn, yet we the audience marvel as Caris retains control, and even sacrifices himself, so that young Reagan McNeil may escape from the demon's clutches.
I need reassignment, Tom. I want out of this job. It's wrong. It's no good.
Number 13, Charles Lee Ray, aka Chucky, Child's Play franchise.
Hello, John. Over here. Hi. It's me, Chucky. What do you think?
We may not actually see much of Brad Dourif's performance as a cult-obsessed serial killer, Charles Lee Ray, in Child's Play. This antagonist, after all, is shot by Chicago detective Mike Norris and perishes shortly after transferring his spirit into a children's doll. That said, Chucky the Killer Doll probably wouldn't be the horror icon he is today without Dourif's inimitable talent as a character actor.
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut!
His vocal mannerisms, profanity, and affinity for long-form ranting/raving is perfect for Chucky's unconquerable anger and evil. Elsewhere, the first film in particular actually does a great job in leaving room for doubt as to whether or not Ray's voodoo spell was successful in the first place. It's classic stuff.
What's wrong? Gun jam?
Number 12, Sam Quint, Jaws.
$10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
There are few genre fans out there that would argue against Steven Spielberg's Jaws as being the perfect summer movie. The film's legacy isn't just that of a blockbuster, however, since the adaptation of Peter Benchley's novel also possesses so many likeable and interesting characters. Roy Scheider brought warmth and pathos to his portrayal of Amity Island's police chief Martin Brody. Meanwhile, Robert Shaw's Sam Quint is a grizzled and irascible man who takes to task the capture of a giant killer shark. Shaw's speech about the USS Indianapolis is one of those movie monologues that grabs you by the throat and never lets go. It's this emotional connection that makes his death at the movie's climax all the more difficult to watch.
So 1,100 men went in the war. 316 men come out, the Sharks took the rest June the 29th, 1945.
Number 11, John Kramer, aka Jigsaw. Saw franchise.
Hello, Mark, Paul, Amanda, Zep, Adam, Dr. Gordon. I want to play a game.
The early millennium wasn't exactly fertile ground for a new horror franchise icon to emerge. This makes the rise of John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, all the more impressive. It was the first Saw film from 2004 that signified the rise of a new horror subgenre. Yet Tobin Bell's performance as a cancer-riddled serial killer provided a face to the carnage, as well as a perverse sense of morality.
Those who don't appreciate life do not deserve life.
My son appreciates his life.
But do you appreciate yours?
His Jigsaw inserts methods for his victims to potentially escape their deadly predicaments. This is providing, of course, that they retain what Jigsaw refers to as the survival instinct.
The jigsaw piece I cut from my subjects was only ever meant to be a symbol that that subject was missing something. A vital piece of the human puzzle, the survival instinct.
Number 10, Ashley Ash Williams. Evil Dead franchise. It's a question that's commonly asked about well-known established movie heroes. Do you think character X could have been played by anyone other than actor A? And sometimes the answer is yes. But that's definitely not the case when it comes to Ashley Ash Williams of the Evil Dead franchise. That's because Bruce Campbell has embodied the role since 1981, reinventing a one-time horror protagonist into a ass-kicking, quip-spewing slayer of the Deadites.
I'll swallow your soul! I'll swallow your soul! I'll swallow your soul!
Swallow this.
Campbell's done great work in other films as well as on TV, usually in a supporting capacity. However, the humour and charm he brings to Ash is something that we'll probably never see again in our lifetimes.
Hail to the king, baby.
Number 9, Carrie White. Carrie.
You should have told me, Mama! You should have told me!
The character of Carrie White has been portrayed by a number of actors after Sissy Spacek put her stamp on the role. Brian De Palma's 1976 adaptation of Stephen King's novel cast a wide shadow, however. It's Spacek who's primarily attached to the role today, and with good reason, thanks to the performance's doe-eyed innocence and innate likability that makes what happens to Carrie all the more tragic. It speaks volumes as the quality of Carrie that we routinely hope things are going to turn out differently for its lead, even though we know full well the horrors that are about to unfold. Carrie White may burn in hell, but her cinematic legacy will live on forever.
Well, who should we vote for? They're more your crowd than mine. I don't even have a crowd.
Number 8, Michael Myers. Halloween franchise.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, and
this all-time slasher classic possesses a wonderful push and pull between its protagonist and antagonist. We have, on one hand, perhaps the greatest final girl of the entire horror medium, Laurie Strode. Then, in the other corner, we have the boogeyman, Michael Myers himself, a towering icon. We're admit that it does hurt the character slightly that there's no one actor in particular that's known for portraying Myers. This comes down to the many people that have either donned the mask or held the knife over the years. That said, Myers' relentless methodology and apparent immortality make him tons of fun to watch, while the mystery of his youth is something that's been explored in sequels, requels, and reboots, and it never gets old.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Number 7. Jack Torrance, The Shining.
I don't think that's true. I think you have some very definite ideas about what should be done with Danny, and I'd like to know what they are.
Stephen King notoriously disliked director Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of his novel, The Shining. King's frustration was so strong, in fact, that he helmed his own version for television back in 1997. It was actor Steven Weber that portrayed the Doom Jack Torrance in that film, with a script that made the character's descent into madness and possession more doomed and tragic. Kubrick's version, for its part, hung its hat upon a definitive performance from Jack Nicholson.
Here's Johnny!
One that eschews likability in favour of menace and a barely there fuse for potential violence. Both performances are good, but it's the atmosphere and impenetrable darkness of Kubrick's vision that remains the shining to which everyone turns when they want a good fright.
How are things going, Mr. Torrance?
Things could be better, Lloyd. Things could be a whole lot better.
Number 6. Freddy Krueger, a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV.
It's a classic schoolyard debate, a who you got scenario with only one winner. Were you a Freddy kind of person, or did your heart belong to Mrs. Voorhees' baby boy? On one hand, it seems perverse for unrepentant slasher villains like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees to retain such a prestigious place within the pop culture zeitgeist.
Please, God.
This is God.
Krueger in particular was a killer who escaped justice, only to be immolated by an angry local mob. Why, then, did his character host chat lines, release a record album, and get to spout off one-liners quicker than you can say nightmare? It was the 80s doesn't really cut it as an answer. Perhaps we must simply realise that they both morbidly captured our imaginations.
You think you was gonna get away from me?
I know you too well now, Freddy.
Number 5. Frankensteins Monster, Various.
There is something I want. A friend.
The Universal Studios depiction of Frankenstein's monster may be the most iconic one today, but the first filmed version of Mary Shelley's classic novel actually dated back to one produced by Thomas Edison back in 1910. The monster has taken on many different cinematic looks since then, from Boris Karloff in the aforementioned Universal picture to Sir Christopher Lee for Hammer Films. We just love this character. We also love to interpret the motivations for his creation as well, with some critics claiming the monster is a metaphor from everything from race to wealth disparagement. At its core, however, Frankenstein's monster is a tragic being that didn't ask for life, is rejected by a bride, and, to paraphrase his own words, belongs dead.
We belong dead.
Number 4. Ellen Ripley, Alien franchise.
If we let it in, the ship could be infected. You know the quarantine procedure.
24 hours for decontamination.
Though she was a tough female badass before that cinematic archetype was codified, a trailblazer for representation in horror and science fiction who only needs to be known by one name, Ripley. Sure, it's Ellen Ripley, if we're being formal, but this heroine of the Alien franchise is basically a household name at this point in horror history.
Ripley, it's here. You got condoms. Stop this raving at once.
I'm telling you, it's here.
Here, and get that foolish woman back to the infirmary.
It also speaks highly of Sigourney Weaver's performance in the role that the character's gender is never brought into question when it comes to capability. Ripley's opinions and actions are respected by her peers, and her judgment is sound. The screenplay from Dan O'Bannon should be commended for writing Ripley so well that the character's natural leadership qualities simply rise to the forefront, making her a true hero.
This is Ripley. Last survivor of the Nostromo. Signing off.
Number 3, Hannibal Lecter, Various.
I think I'll eat your heart.
The character creation from author Thomas Harris has perhaps had the best luck when it comes to on-screen performances. Hannibal Lecter basically has a perfect score of portrayals, from Brian Cox in 1986's Manhunter to Sir Anthony Hopkins' bravura performances in both Red Dragon and The Silence of the Lambs.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Meanwhile, both Mads Mikkelsen and Gaspard Ulliel put more modern spins on Lecter's character, further enriching him for fans of Harris's source material. It all comes down to The Silence of the Lambs for many horror fans, however, thanks not only to Hopkins' work, but also his chemistry with co-star Jodie Foster as FBI agent Clarice Starling.
I have no plans to call on you, Clarice. The world's more interesting with you in it. So you take care now to extend me the same courtesy.
Number 2, Norman Bates, Psycho franchise.
You have a vacancy.
Oh, we have 12 vacancies. 12 cabins, 12 vacancies.
We've mentioned throughout this list the existence of certain tragic backstories for some of our favourite horror villains. There is, however, perhaps no performance more palpably tragic than that of Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. The actor legitimately sells the internal struggle and ultimate frustration of simply not being able to control his actions. This is showcased particularly well in the underrated Psycho sequels, where Perkins questions what is normal within himself, and if he can ever truly change. Meanwhile, that performance in Alfred Hitchcock's original Psycho is one for the ages, a chilling reminder from one of horror's true golden age classics.
But she's harmless. She's as harmless as one of those stuffed birds.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Count Dracula, Various.
I am Dracula.
This Lord of the Vampires is another horror movie character with a rich history, one that dates all the way back to the silent era. Count Orlok from 1922's Nosferatu serves as a captivating debut example of the character's appearance on film, while Bela Lugosi's codified Count Dracula black and white style for Universal Studios back in 1931. Meanwhile, Sir Christopher Lee served as perhaps the definitive version of the Bloodsucker during his tenure at Hammer Films, delivering a stately yet menacing Dracula for the Technicolor generation. More actors stepped into the Count's shoes to wondrous effect, from Jack Palance and Frank Langella to Gary Oldman in Bram Stoker's Dracula. All of them reminds us of one thing: how much we love this stuff.
The children of the night. What sweet music they make.
Who's your all-time favourite horror icon? Let us know in the comments.
You spook easily, Starling?
Not yet, sir.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.